be showing you today how to make your own CBD oil, extracted in organic coconut oil in an easy way that's pretty less messy than making it in other ways. I have a background in chemistry and Chinese medicine, so I put this together as a way to make our own CBD oil in a way that was a whole lot cheaper than buying it. So buying it online, you can save thousands of dollars making your own. I'm not going to go into how to grow your own CBD plants in this video. I'm going to be working with CBD hemp plants that I grew myself and harvested in the fall. The reason I'm making this film in the winter is that I can do this all outside, and the cooking is kind of in a large batch. So all you really need is a pot, with a good steel pot with a lid, a strainer, and some clean rocks or other weights, which are going to hold down a hemp bag that will be full of the flowers and leaves from the hemp plant that I harvested. They're all dried. A little it's a basic burner buffet range, and a food scale. We've got the coconut oil, and the reason I use coconut oil is because it is hard at room temperature. You don't want to use an oil that will be liquid at room temperature, because you won't be able to remove it from the extraction process easily. And then you end up with a product like this in the end. So I'm going to be going over how I make those things. You'll need a number of wide mouth mason jars. Also, in order to give them to people, I put them in little jars like this and labeled them. I just made these last month, gave them as presents to my friends and family for Christmas. Not allowed to sell this in the state I live in because it would require me to get licensed and a whole lot of taxation and process. So I can only give these things away. Okay. So I use the food scale because it's easier to weigh things out and I don't make as much mess. We're going to tear this so we get a weight of something that I could measure the amount of the CBD plant I'm going to be putting into this bag. So, and here's my flowers and leaves and just a little bit of stems. I harvested this in the fall. The CBD seems to be pretty potent even in the leaves, so I'm going to get about 400 grams into this bag. This is a 13 by 14 inch bag. If I drop some, I can retrieve them. And I'm going to be weighing this to see how much I have in here. So I have to squash it down. It's pretty lightweight. Now this particular plant, they claim could have 15 to 20% CBD per gram of dried flower. Since I'm using more of the plant than just the flower, and I figure it's been dried a few months already, it could have lost some potency, or my yield may not bring out completely all that CBD. So I figure it's about 10% CBD. Fill this bag. Let's see about how much there is in here now. Okay, I need another 150 grams or so. And The reason I showed the crock pot over here with this other little newer hemp bag is if you wanted to make a smaller batch, you could do that, and the crock pot makes it real easy. After I've used this bag so many times, that's why it's so stained like this. But they're just stains. When you wash it, it's just stained like that. Doesn't affect anything. Let's see how much is in here now. Okay, still need a little more. I'm gonna squash it down. It doesn't have to be exact. This is not rocket science here. It's more of a combination of chemistry and culinary art. Pretty close. I'll just add another handful or so. There we go, 405, that's good. Okay, so I'm gonna tie this up. This is what helps make this such a clean process. So this is gonna be in the water, and it's gonna have to be weighted down with this and the rocks so that it'll stay underwater. Because we don't want the oil getting in the bag as much as possible. It's hard to get it out. It happens sometimes though. And, you can just put everything back underwater and squeeze it. It should still be fine. You'll still get a good yield. Alright. So this is tied up real good. Get squished down at this point. I'm gonna put it in here, and then we're gonna take it to the sink and start filling it with some water. It's easier to get it done, the first part done in there than out here. So I'm gonna need to keep squishing this down in the water to get as many bubbles out as possible. Okay, let's bring this inside temporarily. Just go. All right, so I'm going to start putting some water in here and squashing this down. It's okay if the water's warm or cold, it doesn't really matter. I find for the comfort of my hands, having the water slightly warm is nicer. This is the only time I'll be putting my hands in here before we have the finished product. When we peel off the layer of coconut oil at the end. That's just the end of the cooking process for this big steel pot anyway. There is more after that. So you want to get this underwater enough where you can be always squeezing it. That should be good for now. I will be adding more water later though. Okay. I can feel that there's some areas that kind of have more bubbles than others. It's really hard to get all the air out, and don't worry about that. You don't have to get all of it out, just until your squashing bubbles isn't giving very much more air out. Wherever you feel the bubbles, give it a good squeeze. It'll come out here. getting it to go to one side. This spot where there, the bubbles are coming up the most. Getting the most bubbles out as possible helps during the cooking process to make sure that this bag isn't going to start floating up between the barriers and getting into the CBD oil layer, the coconut oil with the CBD extract, that is. That layer will be on top. Okay. So now I put the strainer kind of upside down so it'll have the most coverage, and then put the rocks here around the edges. And we're going to need to add more water so that the rocks are also covered. It's okay if the CBD oil ends up getting on the rocks. They don't absorb anything. But alright, so I'm going to add the rest of the water when I'm out here just because this is really heavy. I'm going to be putting it onto the little burner. This is where we'll be simmering this for several hours. I like to do it outside because it's very smelly. The smell is real strong. Although you'll notice if you grow hemp plants versus marijuana plants that the hemp plants, I think, smell a lot nicer. They're not so skunky. But still, this is going to be boiling for a long time. And I'm just adding water right now to get it up over the rocks, but not too high or else it could boil over. And then you'll lose some of your product. So I'm giving it a few inches here from the top, but make sure that's squashed down as much as possible. You want a towel. Okay. Now we're going to add some pure coconut oil. As you'll notice, in this kind of weather where the temperature is below about 78 degrees Fahrenheit or so, this is very solid. So I like to put some of it into a mason jar and then I can melt it easily in the microwave for, I think I melted this for about 1.5 minutes a little while ago. And it's all liquid. This way I can get it into the pot easily. I do need my scale again, because I'm going to measure how much oil that I'm putting in here. I need to tear this. Okay. So I'm going to put about 300 to 400 grams of this into the water for now. See about how much that was. That was 220. 300 should be good, I think. Around there. But it does not have to be exact. Just make a note of how much you put in there. So 311. That's good. And it's approximate. Alright, so now I'm gonna put the lid on here. We'll start cooking. Probably take about an hour to get this boiling, and maybe a little less. So I set a timer for 45 minutes and I keep checking on this. You don't want to leave it unattended and get it boiling really hard. Just needs to get to boiling, and then it'll be simmering for a few hours. Okay, so this boiled for about 6 hours, and then I let it cool down, and the temperature out here does not get below 32 degrees, so I don't have to worry about the water also freezing. The only thing that froze was the coconut oil infused now with the CBD oil and other hemp extracts. And what I'm going to just do is take some of this out, and sometimes I can get the whole thing to just come right out, but not today. This is just my first boiling, so I don't have to take all of it out. I'd be more thorough if this was after the second boiling. So these are, they're all wet, but this will dry, like I said, in the refrigerator, because the refrigerator has a property of dehydrating things. If you ever left something in the fridge uncovered, you may have noticed that. So I'm using that to my advantage with these pieces of coconut oil that are now all hardened. I'll put a little extra paper towel in here. Dry them off. And I don't have to get all of these out. Like I said, I'm gonna get the bigger chunks. These pieces are going to stay in the refrigerator for several days to thoroughly dry as much as possible. This process I do, I'm not in a hurry, so I probably make one batch a week. And so now this will be ready for a second boiling. Some of the water boiled off. I boiled it for about 6 hours. And I want to get the water up over the rocks again. But for the second boiling, I'm also going to add some vodka. This will help bring out more of the terpenes and other semi-oil soluble products and water soluble products to kind of mix in there. Get the rest out. Now, something happened when I was boiling this. I did what I warned you, is I wasn't watching it closely enough, and it overboiled a little, and some of the bag actually came up. So I was able to push it back down with these tongs and get it back under the strainer and the rocks. Let's get this back over the top of the rocks, and my second boiling will be about another 6 hours. All right. Okay, so I have my pure coconut oil. I want to put in another 250 grams or so to start another boiling with. So let's see about how much that is. A little more. That's good. Okay, 257. All right, so now we're going to start cooking it. And get that to just barely, simmering again for about 6 hours. And then I'll just turn it off and let it cool again before I take off the next layer of the coconut oil. All right, so this was the oil that came from my second boiling. I already took it out and dried it in the refrigerator for a while, and this one came out in larger pieces. But before I do anything else with it, I want to make it into smaller pieces and put it in one of the jars that I'm going to use to keep it in. Eventually, after this has been in the fridge again for some more drying, because every time you take it out, some water will start condensing on it from the air because it's warm in here. Warm air holds more water. And you'll know, like when you have a can of soda or something that you take out of the refrigerator, you notice that eventually you get all these little droplets of water. Well, the same thing will happen to this because it's cold. So I want to get it in a form and in a place where when I heat it up, it has the least amount of water in it. I'm using some recycled jars, but they work really well. This was the first boiling. I had put it in here a few days ago with the lid off. I had it in the refrigerator and letting it dry, and then I put the lid on it before I took it out of the fridge because that way no water can get inside the jar. So I can leave that out now, but this is from the second boiling. Eventually I'll put them all into the same jar and heat them up on the stove in some hot water to melt it down and get it to the final product. So I'm just going to be putting this back in the refrigerator when I'm done here. Okay. So now is the time when it's been a few days. I had all these pieces of the CBD oil extracted in the coconut oil in the refrigerator open, and then I closed them up and left so that all the water was pretty much gone from these pieces as much as possible, although there still is like a little bit of sediment that's going to be at the end. So I'm going to be putting this bottle into some hot water on the stove. I'm going to be opening it up. I let it sit out a while because of the fact that any water wouldn't be condensing on any of this as long as the temperature was room temperature. And then I have a little thermometer and I'm just going to keep in the water. I want it to get up to about 180 degrees. All of these pieces are going to melt in here. I don't need to turn it on very high. And then after this is melted down, I'm going to add these pieces in there. It'll fill this jar up to probably about here. And I want to leave it in the hot water bath for about an hour after it gets to around 180 degrees. It looks like I'm going to need to add a little more water in here, so I'll do that. That's going to melt all these pieces down and make any water that's still left in there, there's a tiny bit, and any sediment, those are going to sink to the bottom, and they'll basically get all pasteurized, and all any kind of mold or germs or anything that might be in here will all be killed, and any sediment and water will sink to the bottom. Then my pure oil will be the most of this, and then in order to get it to the right concentration, I'll be adding in a little extra coconut oil because I want to get it to be about 40 milligrams of CBD per gram or milliliter of oil. Well, I did turn the water up just to get it to start heating up faster, but I'll want to have it turned down to 2 or low before I don't watch it as closely. Alright, so this is the oil from my second boiling. It's already starting to melt a little, just being in the kitchen, room temperature. Okay. They're getting quite soft. careful here. Alright, so I'll get the rest of these in here and they'll all melt down. And then we'll come back.